before Dateline NBC and Chris Hansen and the National Sex Offender Registry had a website, it was AOL chat rooms. And if you were a preteen like me, you'd log on and somebody would randomly message you and be like, what's your ASL? That was your age, sex, location for you youngins. You don't know what that means, right? And you'd talk to someone like Hot Chick 494 at AOL. And you'd send them like a picture of yourself, and they would send you like a nude back. And you'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing. Do you want to meet up? And then you'd meet up, and Hot Chick 494 was like some old dude with his dick out at a bar. Those were the days. Me and Ken Krantz today are talking about the wild west of the internet days, creepy AOL chats, chat roulette, mostly old dicks is what we're talking about. This, a lot like Hot Chick 494's wilted gray-haired dick, is a bit too much. I feel like that's everyone's introduction to the internet was AOL.
Right.
AOL chats was like everyone's, like, I mean, and you had like the browser and stuff built in, but like you didn't, like, I feel like AOL chat was like the only thing you used early internet for, you know, like the really early internet days. And it wasn't even like, you had to like find out about websites. You didn't even fucking know what websites to go to, you know?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like you just like went out, you know, had all these apps and stuff. It was like one place, you know, maybe you had like an Internet Explorer browser and you had your AOL. And I was like, I mean, that's all I did. I was like a preteen in the mid 90s, you know, and I just went on AOL chat, and, you know, you had like all your friends' screen names and shit. But like the majority of my experience, until I discovered that there were porn sites, the majority of my experience was entering these AOL chats and just, I guess I was probably talking to like 40-year-old men.
That's
is
all
what I realize now.
It's all it was.
Yeah.
I think in those early days, there was not a single female on the internet. It was just all dudes between like college age and probably their 50s, just some of them pretending to be women to see what they can get these dudes to do.
Yeah.
That was it. It was just thousands of dudes talking to each other.
I remember a friend of mine, this girl in high school, going, this now the internet's been out there for a few more years. And I remember her like talking to this dude. Like, he wasn't necessarily, he was catfishing her, but he was catfishing her as a younger guy, I think. But he just started like, she found out he was like a middle-aged man. This is like a 13, 14-year-old girl, you know, and found out he was like a middle-aged man, and then still was like, he still wants to meet. Like, he told me, they exchanged numbers, and he was like, she was talking to him. She thought he was like 20, and she thought it was like, oh, cool older guy. And then found out he was like 40 and like married, and he was like, let's meet up. And she was like, should I meet up with him? I'm like, you're gonna get yourself fucking killed.
Wait, who was this?
This was like a friend in high school.
Okay. She was like 13 or 14?
Yeah, she was like 14, I guess, probably. Yeah. However old you are when you're like a freshman in high school. 14, and she's like, he wants me up. He's a nice guy, though. I've been talking to him for months. I'm like, you're going to die. You know, dude, this is before like Dateline, NBC, Chris Hansen, fucking busting pedophiles, you know?
Oh,
this is before that.
That was the greatest show maybe ever.
That was a great show. I always loved the guys' like reactions. Like, he'd walk in like, hi. You know, he'd like walk in with that like newscaster voice, and they would just be like, oh, hey, like they would immediately, you know what it's like? It's like when you're drunk and you sober up when the cops show up.
Yeah. Oh, you're just so immediate.
Hello, sir. Yeah,
I used to love I would watch that show over and over because there was nothing funnier. Yeah, it was just the funniest shit. Like, because I also, that would make me laugh that like, so they use these undercover actresses who were over 18, but they looked super young, and they would use them to lure these dudes in. Right. And I guess it was really just a natural progression of chat rooms. Right. You know, like that was the next logical step. Mm-hmm. And, but they would always offer them like, hey, I just baked some cookies, or I made some lemonade. And I would think like, there's somebody on that staff that is baking cookies and making lemonade around the clock, because...
Which sounds so wholesome. Right? But you're luring pedophiles?
Because they would show sometimes they would be like, we would be shoving them out the back door as a new pedophile came in the front door.
Because, like they would do multiple sessions.
Yeah, like they couldn't
That's how they film cooking shows.
Clear that. Yeah.
You know, they're like, oh, let's do like 7 of them at once. So they're just like acting like it's a regular production. Like the normalcy that had to happen around the production table. They're like, all right, so when Sweaty Guy 219 comes in, we're gonna get him. We should have him arrested by about 2 p.m. We're gonna we're gonna then get Big Cock 459, and you know, like you're just talking about them like it's like just a regular production day. Like, all right, guys, ready to go? Cookies ready?
Yeah, but there was somebody that like it was like, what do you do for a living? Like, I bake brownies for pedophiles. Well, that sounds like a pretty niche job. Like, no, I'm working overtime. Like, I'm working around the clock. They can't. They
said,
pay me fast
when I
enough.
applied for the job, they said, as a catering job. As a catering job, things get pretty hectic. But they had, I know, right? That's a bizarre thing. So like you're like, you do like these houses they would get, right? They would like set up a house.
Yeah,
because it had to look like a little girl's house whose parents were away for the week. Yeah. Right? Like that was the whole plot. And then these guys would always bring over like a 6-pack of Zima or some shit. Like the guys would always bring alcohol.
Yes. Well, they would tell them because the reason why is they would tell. So they would be chatting with, what they thought was a young girl, was an undercover cop. Uh-huh. And, the cops would tell them to bring something specific because then that proves intent. Like there's no talking yourself out of that.
Right.
So they would say like, hey, bring me a bottle of white wine. And then these guys would show up with a bottle of white wine and you're like, you're fucked right now.
Right. Your intention was to get this little kid drunk.
Right.
Right. Isn't it fucking crazy? Isn't human nature fucking crazy that like up until the internet, if a pedophile wanted to fucking have find their victim, right? I was gonna say like it's not picking a girl up. It's not what you would call it. But a pedophile, it's a pedophile to hook up. They wanted to have a wild night.
They'd have to buy a van.
Right. There was a very like analog setup to what they had to do. Yeah. They had to go buy a van and put the fucking shades up in it, and they had to go creep around where young people hung out.
Yeah, candy. They would need candy.
The second the internet popped up in AOL chat rooms, they were like, "Oh, let's do this instead." Right? Like that was the first thing popularized internet was used for. Was just, not just pedophiles, of course. It's just people being perverted in general.
Yeah, there's like regular porn. Perverts. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Of course. We're not. I don't want to make pedophiles look like revolutionaries. They were just part of the trend. They just caught on. But it was like immediately internet came out. I was like, oh, I got to go to this porn site. And then the pedophiles were on. It just became a fucking, just like, it's where everyone brought their perversions.
It's funny. Like, I don't even remember early internet porn. Like, I don't remember. Like, I remember the chat rooms, and then I remember, like, maybe there was Yahoo News, and you could go. Like, I remember reading that Phil Hartman had been killed on the internet.
Right.
That was one of the first news stories I remember getting online, but I was, like, sitting at my desktop.
Yeah.
And, but I don't remember how all these other things
There was a website.
Up.
I wonder if it's still around. It can't be. Because it was so like old school. It was a website called thehun.com, the Hun. And it was like, it was just like porn pictures, I think. I don't even think it was videos. And I remember like as a kid being like, this is fucking amazing. You could just type in this porn site and I'm just looking at tits. Like my mind was fucking blown. Like, again, I'm like, 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy, So I'm like, this is fucking amazing. And then on the other side of it was like then I'd go in these AOL chats and I had no fucking clue what I was talking. And like it's funny, like the second the internet's there, catfishing was born. The second it happened, right? Like that's the second AOL chats come around. These like people go on and say, I remember I had a cousin who would just thought it was hilarious to just catfish people. He would come to, and I had a computer and he did it, and he'd come over. He's an older cousin, and he would be like, he'd go on the Hun, and save a picture, and be like, let's send this dude a picture of it. I'm like, why? But he just thought it was funny.
It is. I mean, it is funny.
And he would do it for my screen name. So that he would leave, and this dude was like, hey, man, what if... I was like, oh, God. This guy would just want to, like, sex talk with me.
I remembered, I think it was called, like, flashyourrack.com, where they would just show... It was just titties, and then you got to rate them like 1 to 10. And then as soon as you rated it, another pair of titties would appear. And
just like a constant.
Yeah.
You just get one, you rate it, and next one comes on.
Yeah. Spend hours on it.
Was it real people uploading their tits to get rated, or is it like porn pictures?
It looked like both. Like it looked like there was some high production value to some of these pictures, but others looked pretty gross,
Dude, and then there was like a dark. What was the name of the site? There was this fucking website where it was just like death and ghoulish things. It was a very popular site at the time. There was this website where you would just go on. Ethan, do you know what I'm talking about? There was this website where you would just go on and like find this, like, it was like pictures of like somebody whose head was run over.
Yeah.
So it's just like this discovery of like all these really vile things, really.
Yeah.
Right? It was like, I could just like type in things. And it was before the idea of like, or definitely before we coined like Googling something, right? It was like before, I'm not saying like Google was around, but I don't think it was before people they were just starting to discover that if you go into the search bar, you could just find some shit.
I don't even think I knew that back then. Like I knew how to get to the...
We slowly discovered it.
Yeah.
We slowly discovered it over time. We were like, and then you would hear from like a friend, like, there's this website or whatever weird thing. I feel like that was my whole maybe first 10 years of the internet was like, none of it was like real. It's not like now where I'm like, let me go online and buy that shirt. Like just normal behavior, like behavior that you would do in the real world, you do online now. Everything's online. But at the time, it was only at least from my experience as a younger guy, was like my only experience with the internet was vile shit.
Yes. Yeah. That was my first introduction.
Right? That's all you did. And you spent hours doing it.
Yeah. Because it became like when I was in college, that's when the internet really started becoming a thing. I read this, I think I was telling you, I read this book all about the 90s, and they were saying like specifically people of our age that were born between like 75 and 80 or so, like a very small section of Generation X were the first ones where it's like we lived a lot of our adolescence before the internet and social media, but then we were the ones that had it like we were the ones that got it ingrained in us the first because they started teaching it in school and college. So we had that very dichotomous, like half of our childhood,
you lived a life without it.
And then the other half, growing up in your teens and early 20s, it suddenly became this very...
Which is funny because you think of that first half of your life and you couldn't have even imagined that this would ever be a thing.
No.
Right? Like the idea that you could have, like you were living a very, just like old school life, and then out of nowhere, it's like, you can get this thing in your house.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And immediately everything fucking changed. And dude, it wasn't that long after that you think about like, what was it? Well, it was like chat roulette. Do you remember that thing?
Yeah.
So then people were getting like webcams in their houses, and then they were still using I want to say it was still dial-up when chat roulette came out, like still dial-up internet, like old.
Isn't it funny? I don't even remember dial-up going away. It just feels like it was always there, and then it just wasn't anymore.
Yeah, and then one day you were like, I do kind of remember. I remember people being like, what are you doing? You still have the dial-up? You still got the... Someone will fucking pick up the phone and knock you off the internet.
Yeah.
In your house, like, I'm online.
I know. I'm trying to jerk off, Mom.
Jerk off. Jesus Christ. Which, it's like, why are you on that thing so long? Why do you think, Mom? Why do you think I'm on this so long? There was, chat roulette was funny. It was literally, just like the discovery of AOL, like who flocked to chat roulette? It wasn't everyone.
It was all dudes.
It was young people who didn't know what they were about to see. And then it was always like an Indian dude's dick real close to the camera. It was always an Indian guy.
I maybe didn't spend as much time on chat roulette.
I mean, no, I remember like gathering around my friends and going on chat roulette. Like it was just this like gathering. We'd be like, let's go on chat roulette and see what's going on, you know? And we thought we were going to like have conversations with girls. And then it was just always just this really close up, like the dick was like right in front of the camera.
I know.
Like, oh God.
It was just a bunch of Indian dudes the same age as you doing the same thing around their computer, apparently.
Yeah. No, I think it was older. No, definitely older. Yeah, like much older. I think they were like, you know, it's like middle-aged. Dude, which is like hilarious. Like the second people find out like, oh, you could just go on and randomly chat with people and a camera will be on you. They're like, all right, close up on my crotch. Like the camera was like in their lap. You know, it wasn't even like them lounging back.
Isn't it funny? Because like those old internet pioneers, whoever came up with that shit, spent all this money thinking about the way they were going to change the world and bring information to people. Right. And the first thing anybody does with it is like, hey, you know what everyone on the planet needs to see? Yeah. My junk.
Right. I guess it's like, you know what, now that you were saying it like that, I guess like whatever your fucking perversion is, you just found it. Like you found the right place for it. On the right place for where you felt like you were home on the internet. You know what I mean? Like if you were an exhibitionist, or if you were like one of those creeps that would flash people on the bus. You're like, oh, I could do this without getting arrested now. Yeah, and I could flash like 17 people today. You know, right? Like I guess whatever like fetish you had.
I don't even need a bus pass. This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. It's cheaper. No one's gonna arrest me, and then they'll just hang up and I get the next one. It's the best part.
You know what's so funny is like my algorithm is still sort of like Flash Your Rack. Like my algorithm is all titties.
You just Flash Your Rack followed you into your Instagram feed.
It's my well, it's so funny because like my
it's just weird. I don't know. It has nothing to do with my searches.
My face. I never would click on Facebook Reels. I never paid attention. I'm still a bit of a dinosaur, but
sending me dick pics.
As I would scroll through, I would always see like a pair of titties, and I would never click on it. And then I was like, "Oh, they're trying to get me to click." And then one day it was like, "Well, those look like pretty good titties, and maybe I should investigate." And I clicked on it, and then they were like, "Oh, well, if you like that, here's some more titties you might like." And then I found myself down a titty wormhole, and now. My whole algorithm, it's funny, my algorithm is like titties and when different kinds of animals are best friends. Like those are my two favorite. Like when you have like a monkey and a dog who have joined forces.
Which is kind of funny because it's kind of like your algorithm's like, here's something for before you jerk off and then here's something for after you jerk off.
Here's something sweet for when you're finished, you fucking animal.
Like that moment, like immediately after you come, sometimes you're not even done coming and you're like, what am I doing? You know, that, then you're like, here's something wholesome. Here's a nice batch of cookies.
But...
And lemonade, by the way.
I look at so many titties now in my algorithm that my targeted marketing is now all of my Instagram ads are for AI girlfriends because they're like, there's no way this loser has titties in real life. Like he is way too. Yeah,
right. They took your viewing habits, like plus like, you know, maybe like your age.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, like plus like maybe your friend list, and they're like, yeah, I think this guy needs a girlfriend.
Well, and it's so fun. Like they don't know that I'm laying in bed with my wife going, oh, look at these titties. Oh, right. And by the way, here's a little trick. You can look at every pair of titties on the internet with your wife if you just say, look, these aren't as nice as yours.
Yeah, right. If you just turn it into like, do you believe this bitch thinks she's hotter than you? And you're just scrolling through. Dude, here's how fucking fat I am. My whole algorithm is food. It's literally all food. Like, I mean, my TikTok is just, you know, I follow a bunch of food. I love to cook too, you know. I follow a bunch of like, you know, TikTok chefs, like fake, you know, they're not real chefs, but some of them are. But some of them are just like people who do these like little quick editing, you know, like food tricks. It's all I fucking watch is food. It's like, and it's all like Google. Like I find myself like majority of things I Google these days are like either something my daughter wants to know that I'm not smart enough to know the answer to, or food things. And you know, I think I was talking to I just mentioned Canal Roar one day, and I was saying how like I'm so addicted to food. Like, I'm just so addicted to it. And he's like, no, it's like a real addiction. Like, because I say it kind of jokingly. He's like, that's a real addiction. Though. Yeah. He's like, you really are addicted to food.
Yeah, but you're doing all right because a lot of, you're not like.
I'm deceptive. If, I'm just like, my dad's got the same build. It's all belly.
Yeah.
I haven't filled that. Like, my face, for my weight, my face should be fatter. You know what I mean? But it's all belly. For some reason, that's how my family, they're just like the most stereotypical. We have the perfect bodies for that, like for the guinea teas. Like, it's just, we're built for tank tops to hold our fucking fat bellies like a little harness. I used to do this in my act. It was like I used to wear tank tops outside when I was in shape. Now I wear them like body bras, because they stop my tits from bleeding on my stomach. Like, they really do. They just like fucking hug me. They just hold my fat in. So it's deceptive, but I'm pretty fucking heavy.
You're carrying it well. You're hiding it.
Well, thank you. Your whole algorithm is just titties. So maybe like it's
it's
so maybe you're just used to my titties. I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. So you're like, oh, I think you look great.
It's titties and animal best friends.
Yeah, and then but then after like AOL, right? So like after that shit, then it was like social networks started becoming like a thing. But like early social networks are really funny. Like, did you do MySpace when MySpace was there?
I didn't do MySpace.
Well, there were some other weird ones, right? There was like Friend Finder and shit. Like I never did. There was some other sort of probably like I think at some point people were finding friends on like Craigslist.
Yeah. Where there was like a reunion. There was like a high school reunion one where you could put it, classmates. That's what it was. Where you can find people you went to.
Well, like and like Facebook was like really
that was
for
the
students.
first. Yeah, that was the first one that I joined, and that was after everybody else I'd known. Like I went into that kicking and screaming. It was before I even started stand up.
Yeah.
So I went into that kicking and screaming.
This is stupid.
Yeah. And it was all just, I'm sure you would, all I remember from those early days, it was just all pictures of food. It was just people were just like,
when they're out.
Here's what I had for breakfast. Here's what I'm doing for lunch.
Again, still my algorithm.
Yeah.
but then MySpace was an interesting one. So, because that was like that was to me the first one where you were like, oh, I'm like building this network of friends. You even had like a top 8 friend, or there was different numbers over time. They expanded it. It was like top 5, top 8, whatever. And like, I get MySpace. I'm like in high school and college during MySpace, and like you would like pimp out your fucking MySpace page. Like you put like music on it.
Yeah,
like it was like more like a website. You know what I mean? For each individual person, then like it's a little different than your feed now, where you're like posting things. Like people actually looked at your page.
Oh, okay. And then you just
you put stuff on it. You could put pictures on it. You could put like heavy media on it. You could have like videos on it, but like in a page that was a scroll, not like a feed. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. It wasn't like a feed the way things are feeds now. I think eventually they got the feed in there, but like it was like you went to someone's MySpace page and it was like, oh, this girl's got like, Spice Girls wallpaper on the thing, and then music, and it was almost like inviting someone to your like fucking house.
That's interesting.
It was a really interesting thing, and now now it's just. I mean, for what we do, everyone's just it's all crowd work clips. But like when you think about like what people
crazy.
Yeah,
it's just all. There's no quality control. It's just a numbers game.
That's my point about the MySpace thing. It was so curated. You thought so deeply about it, even though I'm sure if you look back at it, it's so fucking cringy. But you thought so deeply about everything you put up. You were starting to, and it was also the beginning, I think, though, of building your online persona that was not actually you.
Yeah.
Like,
which everyone does.
Which everyone still does. But that was the earlier days of like MySpace. I think was the first time you were like, okay, how do I put this image of myself out there? That is the best version of myself. I'm going to put all my favorite music on there. I'm not going to put the music I'd be embarrassed to listen to. Put my favorite music on there. I'm going to put like, I think I had like a New York Giants fucking background. I'm like, I'm a sport jock, fucking, I was a terrible football player. But it was like, oh, he likes sports and he likes, whatever. a DMX song. I don't know what the fuck I had at the time, but it was just like
Kerry Collins for life.
Yeah, but it was the beginning of like you going like, okay, how do I build this? How do I build this persona? Like, and then people are calling it like a brand now, you know. But like, how do I build this persona that like, well, you know, everything, and for me at least at the time, at the age I was like, how do I make myself look best for girls?
Yeah,
that's all I was thinking about.
Yeah,
it's like, what if a girl comes to this MySpace page? Will they be like, ah, that's a pretty cool fucking dude right here?
Yeah.
You know?
And the shit that you think is cool. It's so funny that you said that and you're like, you know, I had the New York Giants background.
Yeah, like a girl wouldn't give a shit about. Yeah. Yeah, but it's how you think. But when you're young, that's how you portray yourself, and you think it's going to, like, you know what I mean? I just think about, like, I mean, I wore sports jerseys everywhere I went.
Yeah.
Like, girls didn't like that shit either.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's so funny. I think I owned one jersey my entire life. I owned a Rodney Hampton jersey when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think that's enough. I think that's...
Oh, I was all fucking, like, I mean, like, basketball jerseys in the summer and fucking football. I mean, I was like, it was like part of my, and then like, you know, And One, remember that brand?
Yep.
And One. Because like, it's like I thought I was this like athletic person that was bad at all those sports.
Yeah,
I played them all.
you know,
I did play sports my whole life, but I wasn't great at them.
I think I figured out early on that girls weren't into that shit. It was like I would watch, like, it's, you know, if I go to a game, I'll wear the hat or a T-shirt, but that's it. I'm not buying a jersey.
Yeah,
I'm not. It almost feels like what are you going to be tomorrow, little buddy? A cowboy? An astronaut? You know, it almost feels like a costume.
Oh, it does. It's goofy as shit. You know, like now, like even when I go to a Met game, I'm like, I'm not doing more than a Met hat. I'm not wearing a jersey. I'm not putting on the whole. You know, it's like you don't go to a, like, I mean, some people do. You go to concerts and you wear the shit sometimes, but like I feel like that's goofy too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you can't wear the band you're going.
Yeah, that's fucking.
You ever see when someone's clearly wearing the shirt from the merch table that night?
That night, I'm like, what did you come in?
Yeah,
did you just come here shirtless?
I'm so happy that like I got to grow up before social media and the internet. Like, kids are just so easily trackable now.
I do. I think about that shit all the time with my daughter. I'm like so scared of it.
Yeah.
You know?
My whole thing was flying under the radar, draw as little attention to yourself as possible, lie through your teeth, even about shit you didn't have to lie about. Yes.
Really, seriously, everything. You know, my wife has a hard time with this idea because like she's like, why is everyone lie? Like, why is everyone like even like me, my family, like my mom, for example, my mom will lie about like what's in her coffee cup.
Yeah,
there's just no reason.
Because it's none of your business. That's why.
Your goddamn business.
I would tell my mom I was going to one friend's and I would go to another's for no other reason.
Right. It's not like you were doing one thing at a.
Right. It's not like she would have been like, oh, you're going to Josh's instead of Adam. No, you can't do it. It was just standing on principle. Yeah. I can't let these people know what I'm up to.
You brought up such a good point, though. I feel like under the radar was just the way you wanted to be. You know, you didn't want to call more attention to yourself when we were kids.
No, especially now with parents. Like
or even with friends to a degree, because you just didn't want to get made fun of for shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like if the less they know about me. Like I remember, it's funny because I still fucking move like this, but like I remember as a kid being like, I don't want my friends to come over my house. I don't want them to see my home life. You know? These are my friends.
Yeah.
I would go to their house. I didn't want them to come to my house.
Oh, that's funny. I was the house that everyone went to.
Well, you had like 46 people in that house. Right. So it was fun.
And our parents were never around. So it was like they were like, there's too many fucking kids here.
Yeah.
And they would leave for long stretches.
And I remember when I started, like at any time I was dating a girl, I didn't really want them to meet my family. And it wasn't because I was like embarrassed of my family. I just was like, I don't know what it was. It's just like an innate thing to like let's just hide things. Let's just not reveal.
Yep.
That, which is funny now because if you spoke to my wife now, it's like all I do is just fucking vent about everything with her. But up until that point, I really was like, I just don't want anyone to see anything. When I was doing stand up and I had a full-time job, I didn't want the job to know about the stand up. When I had friends, I didn't want one friend to like. I just was like, you know what, this relationship here is what we need. That's all I need. I don't need you to like be fully integrated into my life.
Yeah.
And I still kind of think that way. I really do. I still kind of am that way. I'm like, my home life and my work life are separate. There's like maybe, I mean, there's maybe like 10 to 15 comics that have like actually got to know my wife over the years. I don't even introduce her to comics.
Yeah, it's better that way. Yeah,
right. Well, yeah. It's also like comics are fucking vile anyway. It's like, what benefit is that going to do? It's just going to give my wife a worse idea of what I do.
I remember when my parents moved out of my childhood home.
Yeah,
and we had to like go clear our shit out, and I found buried somewhere deep in a closet like a stack of progress reports. Mm-hmm. Like 3 inches thick. They never made it to my parents. It was like if you got to the mailbox.
That you hid?
Yeah, that I hid. So if I got to the mailbox before you, the shit didn't exist.
Right.
There was no email. Right. There was no app that was like, hey, sign your kid's test, do this. Mm-hmm. It was just if you got to the mailbox first, you were in the clear.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great point, though, about hiding shit from your parents, because everything we did, like, that's school, but like everything in your social life was outside. We played outside. We played basketball outside. We went and terrorized the neighborhood outside. And then you came home and your parent asked you what you did, and you just fucking lied.
For no reason.
Yeah. Well, sometimes for a reason. Sometimes you you broke something, you crashed a car. Sometimes you were just like, but you were able to get away with whatever the fuck you wanted.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas now, kids who are not even going out as much because they're connecting more on social media than they are in real life. That actually, I guess in a way, makes it easier for a parent to find out what they're doing if they can get into their phone or something.
Well, now it's like, now these kids are so dumb. They'll take the progress reports that, with all the terrible reports on them, and like they'll put it on TikTok.
Yeah, like, could you believe they fucking said that? Yeah, they're trying to make everything's content. Everything in their life is fodder for content.
I remember I was out with a friend, and like she picks up her phone. She got an alert. And then all of a sudden she's like, give me a second. And she calls her daughter and is like, hey, is everything all right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then she hangs up, and I was like, what just happened? She was like, well, I got an alert that the garage door opened and she's supposed to be at dance practice. So I'm wondering why she's home.
Right.
And I was just thinking, like, I never would have survived. Like, I can't open the garage door without.
No, dude, the ring. Like, I have a Ring doorbell.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if a mail, like if mail gets delivered, I get a fucking Amazon package. I get I know everything that happens in front of my house, and I have other cameras set up. Like, I have a camera set up by like other doors in case there were ever like a break-in, which is funny because I live in Westchester now. I grew up in Queens. Where I live is so much fucking safer than where I used to live, but now I've got this whole fucking security system. And if like my daughter were, I mean, she's little, she can't, but like if she were at the age where she can go out and come in, I would know every move she made.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. Like, my parents had a system that was so defeatable. Like it was so easy to beat.
Yeah. Here's the system. What'd you do today? Nothing.
Yeah. There were so many kids in the house, and we ranged from age where I was the youngest to, so like if I was 10, the oldest was 21, 22. It was like a wide range. Yeah. And so my parents would just say they built an addition on the ground floor, and they moved into that, and all the kids got a room upstairs.
Yeah.
And so on a Friday night, all of my siblings would be out, and I was, 8, 9, 10, I would be home.
Uh-huh.
And their system was, when you come home at curfew, knock on the door. Knock on the bedroom door so we know you're home.
So
I'd be downstairs just watching TV by myself. And then depending on whose curfew it was, the kids had their own phone line. The phone would start ringing, and it would be my sister. She'd be like, hey, can you go knock on the door for me? Sure.
Oh, that's funny.
And then 30 minutes later, my brother would call, hey, can you go knock on the door for me?
So what, they just like tallied the knocks?
Yeah. And then they would be like, all right, we got 4 knocks. So they're all. It was literally.
Like, if they wanted to know, they could have at least just left the door open and had you go, hey, I'm here.
Yeah, I think it was more of like a don't ask, don't tell, you know.
Right.
But we thought we were so clever, and looking back, they just didn't give a shit.
Yeah, sure. It's like when you own a restaurant, you know that the waitstaff is skimming things here and there, but you're like, you know what? As long as no big things go missing, we're fine. Yeah. Sure. I remember. Yeah, I remember like going out, coming back, you know, like shit had clearly happened. You know, I had like a ripped shirt, was bleeding a little bit. What happened? I just fell a little bit. They didn't even really ask questions. There's also a different generation of like, are you safe?
Yeah.
Like, are you really fucked up right now, or are you just like you got into a little stupid thing with your friends, and they were like, you're like, yeah, I'm fine. And if you seem generally fine, unless you were like in real harm, your parents didn't give a shit what you did, right? But at the same time, if you think about what kids can get into on the internet now, in their room while you're down the hall, you know, it is pretty fucking severe. It is pretty crazy shit going on.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Think about that.
You know, there's the bullying aspect, which happens where people could have like, you know, fucking embarrassing pictures posted of them, and the whole school is laughing at them. There's that aspect of it. There's also the, you know, as we were talking about before, in the early internet days, still happen. Like, there's the creep aspect.
Yeah.
You know, there's fucking, you could be down the hall and your kid's talking to a fucking pedophile in their room. And then they're like, hold on, let me go eat dinner. And then they go back to talk to the pedophile. You know what I mean? Like, there's that whole fucking creepy, scary dynamic where, because at any given moment, your kid could be talking to, whether it's their friends or a stranger, could be planning some bad shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, you know, it's funny you say that. Not that this is funny, but I remember right after Columbine.
Funny little story.
Right after Columbine.
You remember that hoot?
I remember my mom saying, like, blaming the parents. Who would let their child build an arsenal of weapons like that in their bedroom? And I was like, oh, any one of us could have done that. Like, you haven't set foot upstairs in a decade.
You're lucky that the only thing I wanted in my bedroom was porn. Right? Like, you're lucky that the only thing you're going to find is a fucking stiff sock. You know, I'm just not a psychopath.
Yeah.
But that's a great fucking...
I'm like...
But you're right. That was the conversation. Where were the parents? Where were the parents? Where were the parents? It's like,
they were probably downstairs eating dinner, not paying attention to their kid.
Just like you are. Just like you. Well, then there was the whole conversation of, there was a conversation of like, well, it's the internet, or it's fucking Marilyn Manson, or, you know,
the music one's always so funny.
Or video games, which is another kind of tie-in conversation to this, is like, because like now video games are like part of online, you know, because like people game and stuff.
Yeah.
But at the time you didn't. You just had like these games, you know, mostly violent video games. People were blaming that.
Violent video. Although, because they would be like, yeah, you played whatever. What was that? Doom?
Yeah,
and then that would make you want to go. But to be fair, I feel like Mario Brothers did make me want to eat mushrooms.
Sure. Yeah, and get lost in some fucking tunnel.
Go
somewhere.
Explore a drain pipe.
Right. Yeah. Hang out with two stupid Italians. Oh, that was just my experience. That was just my experience because I was surrounded by people named Mario and Luigi. But, you know, like, everyone was blaming media at the time on everything bad that happened. They were blaming music. They were blaming internet. They were blaming video games, you know? And they were blaming parents. But nobody was like, oh, you know, maybe this kid was psychologically tortured by, you know, by his classmates. Maybe, or maybe he was mentally ill or anything like that. It was before anyone wanted to discuss like mental illness, gun control. Like, nobody was ready for any of that shit. It was like, what are the weird things out there? And then if you think, I guess all the people making that noise, though, all people in the media was saying all that shit were, you know, were like older people who didn't understand those things. So so the internet and music, new music and all that shit was scary to them. So it was the first thing you point at, I guess.
Remember Dennis Leary had that great line in one of his specials where they were like trying to blame Ozzy for some kid committing suicide. And he was like, if we could blame Black Sabbath for that, like, can we blame Dan Fogelberg for making me a complete pussy in the 70s?
Yeah, does it work the other way around? That's funny. Does it work the other way around? Yeah, I mean, and you think, like, I mean, now, we were talking about video games. That's a whole other fucking internet aspect now that exists. That, I mean, you could be, your kid's like, I'm going to go play Call of Duty. All right, great, go play Call of Duty. And they're fucking talking to some old dude.
Yeah.
Who's also playing Call of Duty with them. You know what I mean? Like, if you think about it, it's so normalized now because that's just, it's the world we live in. We're all just on our phones all day long. But it's like the idea that your kid, because the parent aspect is what always fucks with me because I just think, all right, I grew up with that. I saw the stuff. It's funny to us now. But it's actually really not that funny because one day my daughter's going to be exposed to all this shit.
I know.
She could be playing a video game in her room and talking to some fucking creepy dude.
But I'm so happy that I've got a daughter where it's like, I don't think video games are really going to come into play.
Maybe not.
She's
gaming.
not showing too much interest. The bullying feels like that's
a scary
to me, that's crazy because I would get bullied in high school by a couple kids, but it was like, as soon as you got off the bus, it was over. It was like, all right, well, at least I can get...
It didn't come home with you, man.
Yeah, but now it's like, oh, they're still bullying you while you sleep.
Yeah, you were going to wake up to some shit.
Yeah.
And also the bullying can be broadcasted in a way. You know what I mean? Like, if there's these horrible horror stories about, like, kids who have, like, embarrassing photos taken of them or people doctor the photo, and they're, like, posting them. Like, now you're also putting it out there for the kid's whole school to fucking see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, all those people that bully is connected to is now reaching all your classmates and bullying you. Because it was like, if you got bullied in the playground, it was like whatever 20 people were around saw you got your ass kicked. It's a little embarrassing. Yeah. But bullying now is a kind of a fucking horrifying thing because it's just, you don't have to punch anyone.
Yeah.
You can just say some horrible shit about them online. That shit scares me because I think about, like, how my daughter just, like, could use my phone. So she's 3, but she knows how to use my phone. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, because the technology is so innate, and which is funny when I see her do that, and she's, like, swiping, and, like, she knows how to get to, like, the kid game apps I have on my phone for her. And then I watch my mother try to fucking pull up her fucking tablet and pull up one website. It takes her 40 fucking minutes to pull one thing.
She's still trying to dial up. Maybe that's
she calls me once a week and asks me what the fucking Netflix login is. I'm like, God damn it, Mom. Like, but it's just like it's like riding a bike. Like, if you know how to do it, it's just like muscle memory. My daughter could just fucking use my phone. So she is of the age, so is yours. Yeah. Of the age where that shit is just part of their lives.
Yeah, it's frustrating because it's like you want to keep them from having a phone for as long as possible.
Yeah,
but that's not really practical either.
Yeah, what's how old's your daughter?
My daughter's 8, and it sucks because it's like she doesn't have a phone, but I'm divorced, so I don't. I have to, if I want to talk to her,
for you.
If I want to talk to her, I got to go through her mom, and then you got to arrange it, and then you got to wait for her mom to get back to me. It can be a lot, and it's like I would love to just pick up the phone and call her.
And they've got the child setting things now.
Yeah,
like you can turn off you can limit what they're doing, have like their messenger be like their messaging only be to their friends.
Yep,
and then you could also it also will lock their phone at a certain time. So you can do that shit.
Yeah,
you know?
I'll probably. Sooner than later, I would think.
I know. I think about that because when I was a kid, it was like a big deal that I got a beeper at some point. That was like, holy shit, I got a fucking beeper, and you couldn't do anything bad with a beeper.
I remember
just fucking vibrating a number would show up on it.
My first friend that got a beeper was because his mom could never find him.
Right,
like he would never be where he said he was going to be.
Because that was the age when you could just disappear.
Yeah, people don't realize that. Like.
You track your kids now. You track them now.
Yeah.
They wouldn't happen now.
But you would just leave the house. Like, you would tell your friends, like, all right, let's meet at the Rush concert in front of the Garden at 8:15.
Yeah.
And then...
No, next to the guy with the heroin. Just right... Like, he's always right there in front of the door, just to the right.
And then you would just have to show up there at 8:15 and wait for them to show up.
Yeah, that's true.
There was
meeting up with people.
Yeah.
You were like, because no one had the cell phone, so it's not like even what you just. If that person's stuck in traffic, you're just fucking sitting there.
Their car broke down or something happens and they had to cancel. You're just standing in front of the Garden, waiting to go see Rush without them.
Right, or like when that pedophile's like, meet me. In this alley.
Yeah.
He's just waiting there.
Meet me under this tree in the woods.
Yeah, poor guy's just fucking waiting there. Waiting there the whole time. I don't know, it's fucking scary, but when I think about it from a dad perspective, because I'm already like building up like, all right, so like when I get my daughter a phone, Like, obviously I'm going to track her location, which is like crazy, you know? It's crazy that like, that's how I'd have to think. Like, I'm going to have to track her location. I'm going to have to look at her phone every day to make sure she's not doing anything fucking weird. You know, our parents had none of those. To be honest, I don't think our parents wanted any of those abilities. Man. You know what I mean? Our parents didn't want to know what the fuck we were doing. Really, why would you want to know what a 13-year-old boy is doing? You don't really want to know.
It's funny you say that because I know this dude who's just found his stepson sexting with he's 12 and he's sexting with his 12-year-old girlfriend. And they
that's adorable.
They found pictures and texts, and it was a very adult.
For a 12-year-old, you're like, holy shit.
Like you were almost like, oh God, where do they even like? Oh, I gotta Google that. Is it real?
Yeah, but you know what though? That's a great fucking point because as a 12-year-old, I think about us 12, right? Fuck it, we were like the most awkward. A 12-year-old boy when we were growing up didn't know fucking anything, and you really couldn't even learn those things. Unless you had like a creepy uncle who'd be like, hey, you gotta tell a girl. Like how did you learn how to talk to girls? How did you know about sex? You just had to fail at them.
Yeah. And
then learn that those things were not working for you. You had to really learn them on your own unless you had like maybe an older sibling could tell you some things, but they still can't. You could just just go on TikTok and you're watching everyone be sexual.
Yep.
And you just learn it by being on the internet. You don't have to seek it. You have to Google.
Like when we were kids, you had to actively search. You had to search it out.
You had to really, in real life, you had to really search it out.
I got a literal from my bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
My brother gave me a literal trunk of porn. Just all that our uncle had given to him for his bar mitzvah. It was like a family heirloom. It was this trunk, and you opened it up, and it was just all Playboys and penthouses.
Yeah.
From the 70s, 80s,
That's
and,
so fucking funny.
Early 90s.
I now pass this on to you.
Yeah.
I finally have a girlfriend. You can have this now. Right? Because like now, I don't need all that porn anymore.
It's crazy to think like I used to, like
I
would know.
Where is that trunk now?
I think I gave it to my cousin at his bar mitzvah.
Dude, bring the trunk in one day. Let's just fucking look at the trunk. Actually, I don't know if I want to touch the trunk.
It's funny. The only I remember 2 issues from that trunk. It was a blue and gold trunk filled with magazines.
Yeah.
And I remember you remember Kimberly from Different Strokes?
Yeah, sure.
There was the Dana Plato Playboy, which was Different Strokes was my shit growing up, so that was huge.
Yeah, I bet you were getting some Different Strokes, you fucking
I remember they had like Jessica Hahn.
Yeah.
And then that's all I remember.
Yeah.
But like you used to read Penthouse Forum, like the letters. Right. Like, can you imagine having to jerk off to a letter?
Yeah, or like you know what else I feel like used to happen? You used to like jerk off to like an attractive girl in like a catalog. It wasn't even porn.
Yeah,
it was like, oh, that girl's. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like maybe a hint of side boob or something.
Yeah, or like a TV show with like a like Baywatch.
Yeah,
was kind of almost porn for us. Because it was like the most attractive, because you didn't have all the media that you could get now. So like you just were like, oh, that girl's hot. Like it was just like any sight of any attractive person was like, you had to make it porn. You had to make the porn in your head.
And there was no,
you had to make the porn.
You couldn't pause the TV. Like you couldn't pause Baywatch. Right. Yeah, like you had to go make it happen.
When Pamela Anderson had her like a minute on screen, you had to just lock it in. Look at it, lock it in, and then go run to the bathroom. Don't forget. You had to lock. You had to create mental porn. You know, it was so hard to come around any of those things. But now the porn is obviously easier to find these days, but so is everything else. And like you said, like the story about the kid texting, like they're so exposed to like just not even necessarily porn. There's that too. That's easy to find. But like the like the maturity that comes along with like discovering your sexuality. They could just watch other people do it and mimic it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you see like there's like young girls on TikTok like fucking twerking because it's a trend.
My daughter twerks. She thinks it's hilarious.
It's funny, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they just think it's funny.
Yeah. And it's like you're killing me slowly inside.
Right, and what do you do as a dad? Be like, stop.
You can't. Right? You don't want to make a big deal.
You don't want to make a big deal.
She doesn't, she's 8. She has no idea what she's doing.
It's a funny movement.
It is funny.
It's a funny movement. So for an 8-year-old, like, it's like making fart jokes with your little kid. Like, just like potty talk. It's like, oh, look, I'm shaking my butt. That's funny.
I showed her the video of the French pole vaulter. I showed her the video of that dude where his
catches his dick
the
on
bar.
The thing, yeah.
She had to put my phone down and step away from the couch. She was laughing. She was like, I need a minute. And she came back and she was like, Daddy, I don't think anything funnier will ever happen. Like,
right.
To her, it's like the comedy is peaked. It's all downhill now.
It's all downhill for that guy, too.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
No, did you see he just got a porn company offered him $500,000?
Yeah, I think Pornhub offered him money, but I don't think he took it, right? Did he take it? I don't think he took the deal, but yeah, he's getting offers. Imagine trading your whole fucking life for the Olympics, and you're like, that's the moment you get remembered for, is your slow motion fucking, because that's what people are doing. They're slowing it down.
But okay, 20 years from now, are you going to be like, hey, who won the gold medal for pole vaulting in 2024? But 20 years from now, if you're like, hey, remember that French dude with that hog that couldn't clear the bar? Everyone's going to remember. No one knows his name.
Yeah, but you want to be remembered for that when you trade your whole life to be an athlete?
Yeah. Oh, do I want to be known for a dick so big that I can't, that it prevents me from doing my job?
To be remembered for that.
I think he's all right with it,
I know that you, Ken Krantz, wish people remembered you for having a giant dick on NBC.
On national, I mean, the entire world saw it.
Right.
It's like, so it's like with like that Rosie Perez speech in White Men Can't Jump. Like, sometimes when you lose, you really win.
Billy, sometimes when you lose, you win. What is a quince? Rosie Perez in White Man Can't Jump is I should go down as one of the greatest characters.
That movie is infinitely rewatchable.
Yeah, not only is that entire movie fucking amazing, but Rosie Perez, she could have said anything in that movie.
Yeah.
She's like, give me some water, Billy. Right, and then he's like, "Do you want me?" It's like, I shouldn't have to ask you to get me water. That whole conversation's fucking hilarious. Yeah. Do you want to get any plugs in for
a bit too much? The podcast.
A bit too. Do you have any plugs? Yes. Hey guys, if you're watching this, keep watching this.
Yeah, go back and watch other episodes.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. Ken, thanks for being here again. Thanks for being my co-host.
Yeah, this is fun.
Thanks for always talking about. I feel like we should just talk about porn every episode now. You're listening to a bit too much.